and welcome to this episode of Positively Negative. Today I'm very excited to be sharing my Mamiyaflex C2, a massive gargantuan metallic beast of a camera. I mean, just listen to all the noises it makes. Oh, metallic goodness. First things first, obviously this camera is humongous, okay? It's a twin lens reflex camera, two lenses. Top lens is the viewing lens, bottom lens is the taking lens, just like a Yashica D or a Yashica Matte or a Rolleiflex or a Rolleicord for that matter. So, you know, typical twin lens reflex camera. Now, if you've scoured the internet and you're sort of getting into film photography and you're looking at affordable medium format film cameras, you'll probably have come across the Mamiya C220 or the C330 TLR cameras. Now, this guy is their predecessor. So basically what happened in the late 50s was that Mamiya decided to release a interchangeable lens, twin lens reflex camera. They weren't the first to do this. There was another company, but they were the first to be sort of mainstream to do it. Now, they released the Mamiyaflex C1, it was known as, okay? And that camera did moderately well, but before long, they released the C2, the Mamiyaflex C2, and that's what this model is. Now, the C2, the monumental upgrade that they did over the C1 was to move, or to add another focusing knob to the other side of the camera. So the C1 only had one focusing knob, so these focusing knobs on the front of the camera had only one of them. The C2 had two. So it was a massive upgrade, but it proved to be far more successful. Okay, so why would you want a Mamiyaflex C2 camera? Well, I'll tell you why I got it. I was looking at the C330s and the C220s, and they're wonderful cameras, but they're quite expensive now, especially ones in good condition. You're looking at about 10,000 Rand, which is about, 10,000 Rand is about, maths, $800 probably, something like that, which is, it's a lot of money for me. So when I saw this Mamiyaflex for sale for 2,000 Rand, which is obviously a quarter of the price, I mean, I just thought, okay, well, what's the big deal? What's the big difference? It's a little bit older, and it's got a few quirks of its own, but largely I thought, yes, that's a good deal. Really scored. So why did I want a C330 or a C220 in the first place? Well, I wanted a medium format camera that I could use to take portraits and macro photography, right? And the awesome thing about the Mamiyaflex series of cameras is that they allow you to do those things very well, because these cameras have built-in bellows focusing systems. So check this. I can extend these bellows of this camera. They seem to just extend forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, right? Up until that point, which allows a minimum focusing distance of something like 7 inches, which is like that close to the camera. So I really had fun taking some macro shots, which I'll show you just now, with incredible detail. I mean, imagine medium format film macro shots. Oh, gorgeous. So obviously a Rolleiflex or the Yashica Mattes or the Minolta Autocords, all those TLRs don't have built-in bellows, okay? As far as I know, that's unique to the Mamiyaflex and the C330, the C220, the whole series of Mamiyaflex cameras. It's unique to them. The other thing that's really cool about these cameras is that they have interchangeable lenses. So you can actually remove this lens. I have the standard 80mm f2.8 lens, which is a wonderful lens. You can actually remove this lens, I suppose these two lenses, and replace them with everything from, I think, a 55mm wide to a 250mm telephoto lens, which I believe is amazing for portrait work. But anyway, I don't own those lenses yet, but I want to look into getting them. They're quite affordable actually online. The standard 80mm f2.8 is about 2,000 Rand in South Africa, which is pretty good money. It's pretty affordable. So with the Mamiyaflex C2, all the lenses have built-in shutters. So all the shutters are actually in the lens themselves. So you have to independently cock the lens, cock the shutter in the lens before firing every shot, okay? The later cameras, the C220 and the C330, I believe they have a wind crank that cocks the shutter as you wind the film. The Mamiyaflex doesn't do that, it's separate. So you wind the film on with a separate knob on the side, and then you cock the shutter on the front of the lens like so, and then you fire the shutter on the side of the camera like so. Okay, and then you move on to the next roll. In use, it's very much like the Yashica D, as opposed to the later Yashica Mats. Again, it's like it's a little gimmick, but once you get used to it, you get used to it very quickly, and then you move on, and it's really fine. I mean, I can assume the crank would be more convenient, but it's not really something that bothers me, because the truth is, this is a camera that demands you to slow down. It's a tripod camera largely. I mean, I've shot some handheld stuff with it, but I find I struggle with it because it's so big. To handhold is difficult. So I use it with a tripod, and I use it largely for landscape work. Done a little bit of portrait stuff with members of my family, and then obviously some macro stuff, which was good fun. The other reason I wanted one of these was because of the f2.8 80mm standard prime lens. That's sort of the sort of like the kit lens of the camera. So with my Yashica, with most of the affordable Rolleiflexes and Rolleicords, you're getting f3.5 lenses. There was something about having a 2.8 that just appealed to me. It's like, ooh, that's fast, you know. Funny enough, I don't think I've shot a single photograph at f2.8 yet because I'm too nervous about missing the focus. Because f2.8 on a medium format camera like this is going to be extremely shallow focus. Some more basic details: it takes 120 film, so medium format film, roll film, shoots 6x6 negatives, so square negatives, just like your other 6x6 TLR cameras, just like your Rolleiflexes, just like your Hasselblads, which is a massive negative, you know. When I scan these negs at 3200 dpi on my Epson scanner, it's about 50 megapixels of detail that you're getting out of the negative, and it shows. The detail is incredible. It's so nice. Okay, so some of the other quirks, some of the other difficulties with these Mamiyaflex TLR cameras. Because of the bellows focusing, because you can extend these bellows so far, you get serious parallax error. So the parallax error means it's the difference between what you're seeing through the viewing lens and what's actually being taken in the taking lens. So now imagine if you're taking a macro shot of a touristy Pink Floyd The Wall mug, and the closest focusing distance is about so far. The difference between what the top lens is seeing and the bottom lens is seeing is quite stark. In fact, if you look at the viewfinder from the top, the halfway line in the viewfinder represents the top of the actual frame, right? So when you're doing macro work, you really have to pay attention to that. The other thing that's interesting about the bellows extension, sorry, Pink Floyd The Wall, putting you down. The other interesting thing about the bellows extension is that because of the extended bellows, the amount of light that's hitting the film plane is reduced because it has to pass a further distance. So you actually have to adjust your exposure. You have to allow more light in. So you either have to adjust your aperture or slow down your shutter speed by, I think it's up to 2 stops at full extension, might even be more, to compensate for that. But Mamiya is very nice. They've given you a nice scale on the sides of the extension, so that actually shows you, oh no, at full extension it actually shows ×3. So you actually need 3 times the exposure. So for example, 2 times the exposure means an extra stop, and ×3 means another 1.5 stops. Okay, let's distend the bellows. Obviously it's a waist level viewfinder. It's a sort of all unfolding, all encompassing waist level viewfinder. You'll see mine's got, mine has a little crack in the ground glass, but it really doesn't affect the viewing, the use at all. I know with the C330, the final sort of version of this camera, get the focus back, with the C330, the final version of this camera, you could change out the focusing screens to make it like more professional, you know, which is a nice touch. I mean, obviously if that's something you're interested in, then the Mamiyaflex can't do that. But I think obviously the most famous reason why people get these Mamiya cameras is because of the interchangeable lens ability. So how you change lenses on this guy is pretty cool. On the side of the camera, you'll see a lock and unlock switch. So what you've got to do is you've got to put that switch to the unlock position. And now what that does is it places a sort of black cloth like plane in front of the film plane, so that you can remove the lens without exposing the film to light. So then what you do to remove the lens, there's a little wire at the top here. You move that out of this position back here It's also a bit tight on my one. There we go. And then that pops out like so. Okay. And now the lens is free to be removed. And they come out as one. Right? So you'll see at the bottom of the camera, there's like a black cloth shutter thing that's protecting the film. So now we can change the lens. Now the lens itself, now these lenses themselves are really cool little pieces of engineering. So this, like I said, is the 80mm f2.8. You'll see around the lens itself, you'll see shutter speeds on this side. So you turn the shutter speed like so, from the speeds ranging from 1 second to 1/500th of a second. Again, you can cock the lens and fire it separately from the camera, which is pretty cool. Alright, to put it back into the camera is as easy as removing it. You just place the lens there. There's no like screwing in or anything. You just place it into the camera body. You take the metal rod and you put it back in its position. And then you move this into the lock position again. And now you're ready to shoot. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. It's also just cool. It feels like professional. It's like moving rods and pushing things and makes pleasant clunking sounds and very cool. Okay, one of my other favorite parts of this camera is you can see the mechanism to fire the shutter. It's sort of present outside the camera. So I cock the shutter here. Okay, now that shutter's cocked. And I fire the camera by pushing down this knob on the side. Now watch how this whole sort of assembly, sort of Meccano looking stuff moves when I fire the shutter. It's really cool. Right? I'll do it again one more time just for fun. Okay. Really cool. So when you use a cable release, the other thing I love about this camera, it's got a standard threaded cable release. When you use the cable release, it screws in up here at the top. And when you press the cable release, it moves this thing at the top there. Do you see how that thing moves? So the cable release moves that thing at the top and then pushes this down and fires the shutter. So one more time, and fire. Flippin' cool, I love it. So, benefits of the Mamiyaflex C2. Firstly, it's cheaper than the C330 and the C220, which are newer, later, slightly more advanced cameras. So, it's a bargain. Secondly, the picture quality that you can get out of these cameras is astounding. The lenses are incredible. The ability to focus in close is unique in the world of TLRs, and it gives you immense flexibility in what you can shoot, which is awesome. Some, shall we call them disadvantages? Some disadvantages. It's heavy. It's very heavy. I've got a pretty thick strap that it's a Sony strap from a PD170 video camera that I use on this camera. It's a heavy thing. Carrying it around on your shoulder when you walk around, it's heavy. It actually does weigh you down eventually. It's not a camera I would take with me on walks if I'm hiking up a mountain or something. Another negative would be the separate winding and cocking mechanism in the lens. So it is possible, and it happens kind of often at the beginning, that you will double expose your film if you don't remember to wind onto the next shot. Bear that in mind. But once you get used to this, the sort of the routine of firing the shutter, taking the picture, and then winding onto the next roll, and then doing the same thing again, the next shot, you get used to it pretty quickly. So it's a negative, but it's not a deal breaker, not for me anyway. Okay, now we can look at some sample images I've taken with the camera. You'll see there's just a nice mixture of some portraits in black and white and color, a few landscape shots, and then some macro shots, which I'm really quite chuffed with. I mean, the level of detail in these macro shots is unbelievable. So that's the Mamiyaflex C2 in a nutshell. I obviously never used the later versions of this camera, so I can't comment on which one's better and which one's worse. My gut feel would be that the C330 is the best camera of the lot, but you pay for it, it costs more money. This guy weighs a ton, feels great to use, takes wonderful photographs if you keep some of its quirks in mind, and is affordable, really affordable. And I'm really chuffed that I got it. I really dig it. I can't wait to shoot more film with it and share that with you guys on my Instagram. Alright guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and from me and the Mamiyaflex C2, see you next time.